my friend on here. Get us started here for Riffing while black.
Yeah, hopefully I added it. Let me see if I did this one already. I'm gonna try this again. We're gonna try this again. Invite. Technology is a beautiful thing, isn't it? Here we go. Hey, Dr.
Hey,
How you doing?
I, I'm frustrated that we continue to have technological difficulties where I can't see your face.
Yeah, it kind of sucks.
Maybe of the a few people watching, somebody can tell us how to fix the problem.
I mean, that's my hope because I would like to believe that I know more things about technology than I actually do. I was always that guy who could help the copy machine work right. So we're next generation here trying to work out the social media, IG, TikTok, whatever business.
Yeah, yeah. Well, so somebody who knows more than we do, if you could help us understand why he can see me, but I can't see him. But that's
Yeah.
okay. We have a lot to talk about today. I'm super excited about our topics.
Yes, I am too. I am too. So let's get started. Well, let's review the topics first, so we can, and
Okay.
then we go into our first thing for today. You
Okay.
want to review those?
Yeah, we could let's sort of trade off. So, last week we were talking about Gen Z and we were talking about their sex recession. At least this is what some of the articles are saying. And then, you and I had been talking about how some Gen Zers feel a sense of loneliness and disconnection from community.
Hmm. Yeah, we definitely had that loneliness, disconnection. I definitely want us to go a little deeper into that one. The other thing that we talked about was this idea of women who are too eligible to date.
Too eligible to date. Now, as the single person of the duo, I'm going to be asking you
Hmm.
about that.
Yeah, I'm already side eyeing this one, okay? But we're gonna spend more time on this one because we got some other side eyes to focus on, and
We
that
do.
we got Candace Owens and
Much,
Shannon Sharp.
much side eye on that. Mm.
Okay. Thing is, I like Shannon Sharp. Don't get me wrong, but I got some side eye for him because there's some developments of the last day or two that I thought we should focus on. Uh,
So should I admit something to you?
yes, please.
This is really bad. But remember, I'm not really in the world. Okay, so I did not know who Shannon Sharp was. I do now, but I didn't when we first talked about it. But I did some research. I did some research.
Yes,
Mhm.
yes, yes,
Mhm.
yeah. Well,
Yeah.
yeah, Shannon Sharp, I've actually watched him over the years, even when he was still a player back in the day. And so to see him kind of continue his career and still be a relevant voice in the community and stuff, I am happy for him in that sense. But again, there's been some recent developments that I think require a little side eye.
Yes. Okay. All right. So,
So
are
which
there
one do you want
other
to start with?
topics for us? Or these
Well,
are the ones we're going to talk about?
I think this would be more than enough for us to talk about because they
Okay.
all encompass a lot. So yeah, but before we get into those topics, I do want to give our grounding card for today, if that's okay.
Yes, please do.
All right. This one might be a little bit challenging, but I think you can go with it. Um,
Wait, challenging for me?
no, just challenging in general because I've gotten
Okay.
this I've gotten this before, but it should be good. I'm gonna hold it
Okay.
up. I know you can't see it, but A way I can move through discomfort is blank. A
Oh,
way
okay.
I can move through discomfort is blank.
So, I'm going to be a little contrary. I think the way one, whether it's me or somebody else, can move through discomfort is to remember that one, it's not forever, and two, part of life is uncomfortable, and your ability to tolerate it teaches you something about yourself.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Boom!
yeah, yeah. I like that. I like that. I mean, I'll be honest. Discomfort is not something I wake up to. Like, yeah, let's do this discomfort thing today. But whether it's waking up and realizing I'm a day older than I was before, I'm not quite the spring chicken I used to be. My bones actually hurt sometimes when I go to the weight room and I'm trying to
For
get those
real.
weights up. Or my back doesn't quite recover the way I want it to. These are all physical manifestations of discomfort. But I've learned, as you shared, it's sometimes just being in the moment and being in the discomfort
Yeah.
that I'm experiencing, and just
Yeah.
being okay with it, and like this is part of life.
Yeah.
And so, because I think in the past I'll fight it and be like, I hate this, I don't like this discomfort, or I want to avoid it altogether, which is understandable.
Hmm.
But I've learned that sitting with it, even if it's for a moment, is actually instructive. You can learn a lot
Well,
about
and
yourself.
that's part of what we do as therapists, right? Like we sit with people in their discomfort and
Hmm.
help them learn to understand it and tolerate it. And so, you know, discomfort doesn't last forever, but it does often teach you something if you're willing to learn whatever lesson that is.
Yeah,
Because
exactly,
our human response is to push it away.
exactly, exactly.
Mhm.
Well, let's get
Yeah.
into which one you want to touch first. You want to do the loneliness that, or the women are too eligible to date?
Well, I guess since we were just talking about discomfort, maybe we
Hmm.
can start talking about loneliness because that's uncomfortable.
Hmm.
And then we can talk about some of our other topics.
Hmm. Hmm. Okay. Well, how I feel about loneliness. I think that's one of the biggest things that we're experiencing, particularly Gen Z is particularly experiencing.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think, obviously Gen Z, was young during the pandemic. And, this is one of the first generations where everything is digital. I mean, sometimes I will be teaching my students, I'll be like, take out a sheet of paper, and they look at me like I'm crazy. Like, what? Paper, pen, huh? What ancient tools of which you speak, Professor? Um, but, there's some really good things about sort of being a digital society. And then, I think with that comes a disconnection from other people. So I notice people of our generation, us old Xers, who can't get out of bed without aching, still call people on the phone.
Hmm.
And if I ask my daughter, who is Gen Z, she'll be like, huh? Like, wait. Sometimes I'll be looking for her in the store and I will call her and she just won't answer the phone, but she'll answer a text. And so I think socially things have shifted and that contributes to loneliness and disconnection,
Now,
or it can anyway.
why do you think that is, Dr. Helm? Because you see, it's just something that's common. Like you'll make a phone call, they won't pick up, but the
Yeah,
text messages they will. There's two part of my brain working. There's one part of my brain saying, "Man, I wish I had done that or had that option back in the day." Because sometimes I just don't
true.
want to talk on the phone, and I don't mind just
True.
responding to a text. But then there's another part of me that feels like that's kind of contributing to some of the disconnection where
Yeah,
we avoid those personal conversations, those awkward moments, for a lot of good reasons. But it seems like it's almost led to us cutting one of our arms off. That makes us unavailable for certain human connection.
sure. Sure. Well, when you text, you miss things like voice cues, right? You know how if you're talking to your best friend, you call that person and they can tell immediately by the sound of your voice that something is wrong. And when you text, you miss the nuances of what that is, which I think can really lead to disconnection. So, you know, I'm imagining Gen Z doesn't have to learn how to break up with people in person because a lot of times people, if you're going to break up with somebody, you just do it by text, which I think is sort of not as humane as it could be. But I'm old, so
I mean, yes, and I guess there's certain advantages of breaking up, however foul, versus text messages. I mean, I heard someone was telling me not too long ago, as this last week, that their friend who had been married a number of years got a breakup, divorce
uh,
text from
uh,
their 100. I'm like, whoa, that's so fat. I mean, to me, the message has been sent. I'm mad and I don't like you. If you don't break up, like I want a divorce. I'm like, wait a minute, on text, really?
Well, I'll tell you that as a couples therapist, people like will read that the couple will be sitting there in the same room reading their argument text out loud to me to help,
Be
to be
exhausting.
like, hey, can you help us sort through this? Let me read you this text. And I remember when this first happened, when texting became a thing in the early 2000s, 2005, 6, 7, something like that. I was like, what you mean you had an argument over text and now it's just commonplace, right? But I do think that, some of that means that you lose some social skill to be able to do certain things in person.
Yeah, there's something about a good in-person breakup. That I mean, don't get me wrong, it's painful. It's painful. It's damn near intolerable. But there's something
Yeah.
very valuable about having the tough conversation, the preparation of what you're going to talk about. It's hopefully you're doing some good listening, that not just talking.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, I've heard of some breakups that are real simple, like, "Hey, I don't think this is working out. You're beautiful, you're wonderful, but I don't know if this is working out." And they're like, "Yeah, I was having the same feeling." Done. And then there's
Yeah.
others. They're like, "What do you mean you want to break up? I thought you were about to propose." You're like, "Wait a minute, how that happen?" And so I see why people avoid those in person kind of experiences. They are heavy, but
Well, they're
I don't know.
uncomfortable, right? But at least if you're doing the breaking up or if you're being broken up with, there's an emotional process, right? Like, I think it's hard to be in both roles, the person who breaks up with, the person who is doing the breaking up, but you get to see facial expressions, right?
Mm,
You get to, I don't know about closure, but, there's something about being able to sort of have hard conversations that you don't necessarily have to do over text.
that's true. That's true. I mean, now it's almost like there needs to be an etiquette. Look, I hate to sound old school, but right, there's the things that we should do versus, in person versus the things that we should do for over text. And then
Yeah.
maybe there's some things we just shouldn't do over text. I mean, I mean, it's connected to this whole loneliness thing because again, those
Mm.
nonverbals, those little cues, there's the intonation in their voices, and I guess as I'm having this conversation with you of all the reasons why we should do things in person or to avoid some of the loneliness, it's also the reasons why people don't because all this could be overwhelming, right? It's like,
Yeah.
oh, what did they mean when they said so and so, and they didn't really make good eye contact with me, and their voice they didn't sound excited to hear my voice when we were talking.
True, true. But you know what? I don't think we're going back. Like we're not going back. All this stuff is here and people are using it. But I remember like having a conversation with my students, and they were talking about text language, right? And
Mhm.
how if someone's like, hey, something, 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 and one person's like K, they're like, oh, that's so offensive. And I was like, it is.
Mhm.
Instead of saying okay or all right, saying K, they were like, yes. And I was like, I did not know these things. So, each generation brings their own communication style and prioritizes what's important to them. So I don't think that we're going backwards. It's
No.
here.
No,
Yeah.
it's definitely here. And I'll be honest, there's a part of me that wants to go back in time and figure out when telephones became more popular, how that disrupted people's communities and communication styles. You know, I can imagine someone saying, and there was a time when people just put down the phone and came over your house and talked to you in person.
Yeah. Or people actually wrote letters.
So I have a friend, I'll say, who loves sending old school handwritten letters and notes to people to tell them how much they care about them and love them and cherish them. And I'm like, why are you wasting paper, an envelope, a
And how
stamp?
sweet is that? Look, you're criticizing, and
I
I think
mean,
it's very sweet.
I expect to hear that from another Gen Zer, but I was just like, I was just like, girl, that's a lot of time and energy. And what I discovered, to be transparent, was that it wasn't just the giving that was important. It was
Yeah.
the process that she enjoyed about sending those. It made her feel good. which is as
Yeah,
important
but you're
as.
like, look, don't do that for me because that's for you. You really just wasted paper.
I mean, that's exactly what I told her. I said, "Hey, you don't have to do that for me, girl.
Said
Just
that's
send me a
your
text
love
message."
language, but you can spare me that.
Exactly. Exactly. So yeah, I was, but to me, the having the conversation about the thing is part of it too, right? It's like, I remember I got the letter. I was like, "What is this?" And then we had a conversation. I'm like, "You do this to a lot of people?" Like, yeah.
Okay.
Why?
So if you are listening and you're the one who wrote him this letter, he didn't appreciate it. So please don't do it
Nope.
again.
Nope. Didn't do it. I'm
It got
wondering.
missed. It got missed completely. Please do not write this man a letter. Leave Dr. Prince alone. Don't write him any more letters.
Because I'm a pro feminist and environmentalist, and so I want to save a tree or two when I'm out there in the world. But I will admit this: I had a better appreciation for why she did it. I doesn't mean I agree with her. I just appreciate it more because before I was absolutely not. Now more, I'm like a 2 out of a scale of 10.
Really? Wow. Mm. Well, I guess for our listeners, just be careful before you do something like that because clearly not everybody appreciates it.
You might want to ask. You might want to say, "Hey, I like sending out letters. Is that something you enjoy?" Now, I can tell you this. I'll say this, but we can move on to another topic. I
Okay.
used to get this is a long time ago, but I used to get letters from my great grandfather, and he would start up on the letter on the front. Of course, I had the stamp and stuff. Now on the letter it said, "Master Prince," blah blah blah. My name and address. And I was just
Okay.
like, it made me feel grown at the time. It made me feel special. I mean, it was from him.
Yeah.
And so I get that. I don't want to give the impression like I have no idea what that's really like. I'm just
Yeah.
saying today, he didn't have text messages. he,
He did it, but you still described having an emotional connection
oh,
with
yeah,
him
no
through
doubt.
his letters,
Yes,
right? And
true.
so in all communication, right, whether it's texting, whether it's in person, I think, especially around things like relationships or breakups, right? Are you communicating through emotional connection? And are you clarifying what you're saying to make sure you're being understood and things, especially via text, good Lord.
Well, and then maybe that's the key piece, right? Whether it's text messages, in person communication, part of the way of kind of getting through this loneliness is how do we have deeper connections? That means getting
Right.
beyond the superficial. So whether your approach is text messages or in person or some combination, do you go beyond the surface to really dig deeper in those connections with people? Or do you find yourself staying pretty superficial, which is the big problem for a lot of people, right?
Sure. Sure. Well, some people don't know how to go deeper.
And that's the
I mean, and
discomfort,
that's
right?
sort of what, and I'm a person who trains, students to become therapists. And, one of their first questions is, how do you go deeper with a client? Right. And so we're talking about emotional connection. And when you feel connected to other people, especially the important people in your life, you're typically not lonely.
Right, right. And
So
that's really the
loneliness
point,
is
right?
an epidemic right now.
And I really like the last part you said is that when you really connect with people, that sense of loneliness tends to dissipate, or your ability to navigate it is greater,
Sure.
right?
Fair. Totally fair. Yep. Yep.
Well, that's a hard
So,
one. That's a deep one, but that's a hard one. I, I don't know if we want to go back to the sex recession again, but I do want to go to this women being too eligible to date.
yes.
I'm
So this
suspect.
topic came from an article. I
Yeah,
can't remember. We read an article. I don't know. I don't want to misquote myself, but whether it was a New York Times, but it was an article about how eligible, right? Or how, what is it? Ineligible or too eligible? Too
too eligible.
eligible a lot of single women are because they, don't need partners for money. They can take care of themselves. They have strong connections with other people. And
Mhm.
it was just kind of an interesting take, right, on sort of dating and or the lack of dating, really.
Well, it's interesting because what the article made me, excuse me, go back to is there was a time and we'll just stay here with the states and then with Americans. that a lot of people got in relationships not because they were necessarily the love of their life, but it was a security, safety issue, right?
Sure,
If I get
sure.
with this person, well, I have a place to live. Yeah, I can start a family, but they have a means of taking care of me. I mean, if you have a society where women can't have bank accounts, own property, all that kind of stuff, getting
Yep,
into a relationship makes a lot of sense.
yep.
However, yeah, sorry.
So my mom told me, right, my parents were kind of the last of the silent generation. They were born in 39 and 41, right? And I remember my mom telling me that when she got married to my dad, she had to give up her credit cards in her name, right? And there were all these things that women couldn't do. They couldn't necessarily own property, couldn't start a business, all of these things, right? And I mean, I can't even imagine today having to give up your credit cards and credit score and all this kind of thing to your if you have a to your male partner, right? Because you're really ceding a huge source of independence.
Right.
Now we look at today, women do not have to do those things. And, in this article, right, and sort of, in the current zeitgeist, a lot of women are going, I ain't putting up with that. It's happening in
Hmm.
Japan, it's happening all over Europe, and it's happening here in the United States.
Hmm.
With people are having less children, and they're like, I don't wanna, I
Right.
don't want kids. I'm good.
Yeah, and there's a part of me that's from a practical perspective, it makes sense. I just don't
Yeah.
know. I would call them being too eligible. Maybe they're just regular eligible, who are
But
independent, who have their means of taking care of themselves and don't have to rely on anyone. Or at least the perception of not having to rely on anyone else, and that's totally cool. My concern is this: it ends
okay.
up being another barrier or excuse for not kind of asking ourselves, because I do this myself in my dating life. Am I in a place where dating is really something I should be doing? Am I
Mm.
really in a place to be receptive to a relationship that requires a bit more depth?
Mhm.
And so I feel like sometimes the if I'm not saying it's always, I'm saying sometimes I think there's situations where some people, men or women, who will come up with things like I'm too eligible when actually you're not connecting very well with people in general. You're doing
Well,
really
yeah.
good with your dog and cat at the house, but when you go out there to date, you're like, I don't like any of these fools. Like, okay, no one in the world is the 7 billion people in the world you don't want to connect with. Something's not right there.
Yeah. Well, but I think that emotional connection can look differently depending on who you are.
True.
And right now we have this phenomenon where if somebody's looking for a college educated partner, more women, especially more Black women, right, are going to school versus men, right, and so that can create an educational gap if you care about those things, and I think that a lot of women may be looking at this and going, I'm good. I don't
Hmm.
need these things. I might want, physical intimacy within a relationship. I might want to be
Hmm.
partnered, but I'm
Hmm.
good. I
Yeah,
don't need it. I don't have to need it.
and that's the truth right there. Because again, there was a time where people felt like they had no choice but to.
Yeah.
Women, men too, maybe are saying, you know what, I'm good. I'm so good. And I mean, as a matter of fact, I was talking to a woman a couple of weeks ago, not a dating situation, but just conversation. Because I think you know me well enough. I can talk to almost anybody.
Yes, you
And
can.
she was like, I don't know, near 60. And she said, yeah, I still got my ex-husband calling me, but you know what? He needs to stop calling me. Unless it's business about the kids, I don't need to hear about it. And I don't need no boyfriend. They too much of a headache. I might need a little something that shows up maybe every other week, maybe once a month, but I am good. And I'm like, okay.
There's nothing wrong with that. Good for you.
Mm. Yeah.
Right? Like, good for you. It's worse to sort of feel pressure to get into a relationship that you really don't want versus avoiding it in the first place. I want to address a comment in the chat. Like,
Sure.
one of our audience members says that her mom didn't get married till she was 27, because, during this time her mom was born in 44. And, because that's what everybody was doing then. But things have changed. And marriage isn't what it used to be. I don't
Right.
think there's all this kind of research on, we look for different things from our partners than people did 50, 100 years ago. And, the rules in some ways have changed.
I mean, I'm looking for something different than I was looking for when I first got married when I was 24.
Do tell.
I mean, it's just I'm more. I would like to think I'm more mature now. I like to think I have a better sense of what works and what doesn't work for me right now. The kinds of
Yeah.
conversations, and the truth is, I'm not the same person I was when I was 24,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that's
Well,
always the
and
struggle.
24 is so young, right? Like, my mom got married at 26 and she was considered real old, right? But 24 is still pretty young, at least today, to sort of know what you want and to know what you're looking for in a relationship. And there's some very mature 24-year-olds,
Yes.
but considering we're hopefully living longer, you get married at 24, you stay with the same person. That's a long time.
But I do want to acknowledge this, and I think this is the other side of our conversation. I think there's plenty of women who have legitimate concerns and frustrations about the dating pool that's out there. That they're finding these caveman-like individuals who have the emotional capacity that seems pretty limited. And so when
Mhm.
they're out there and they're looking at their lives, they're looking at their level of success, they're paying their bills. It doesn't mean they're wealthy, just they're doing fine by themselves. Maybe they
Yeah.
have a kid or two. And they're going through life and they go on these dates and they're like, what the? And what did he just say? And what is wrong? And this and I hear the same thing from women who maybe there was some kind of physical kind of whatever with them, and
Mhm.
sometimes not. But after their first, second, third, fifth, whatever date, they're just like, this dude is trash, and they're
Yeah.
frustrated. They're super frustrated, and I think there's some legitimacy there.
Yeah. So it's interesting. So you're going to take that point, and I'm going to, and I don't mean to frame this in straight relationships only, but so I'm a put it stick up a little bit for the men's okay, in saying that I don't think that society does a good job of socializing men into healthy romantic relationships, right? Because that, in terms of emotional connection, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that boys are taught to absolutely disconnect from themselves emotionally. I remember running when I thought I could run a marathon, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, and discovered I do not have 26-mile knees. I barely had 10. But anyway, sidebar. And this young boy, maybe he was 9, fell, right? And he was profusely bleeding and he was
Mm-hmm.
crying. And I don't know if this is his uncle, his brother, his dad. And they were like, stop that crying, be a man. And I thought to
Mm-hmm.
myself, but he's not a man, he's 9. And
Right.
when you're taught to disconnect from your emotions and never to show those things, and then all of a sudden you get in a romantic relationship and there's the emotional demand there, you are not prepared for that.
Well, there's that, right? And I think there's a lot of things that I hear from women. What they can hear, complaints I hear, is, and I hear this from the dating experience. They avoid men who spend a lot of time on video games, who watch a lot of sports, who do a lot of fantasy football, who started a league, who started a league of some sort, or they collect a lot of different stuff. And I
Uh-huh.
think I hear them saying, and I'm not saying it's accurate all the time, because I think you can
Yeah.
have these hobbies and interests and still be an interesting person with some depth. I think what they're looking for are red flags that tell them that this person has lacks any depth or insights.
Yeah.
And the other piece of that is the time, right? If you're spending all your time on video games and other kind of hobbies, when are you gonna make time for me? Because I was talking to
Yeah.
a sister today about how they just they basically from Thursday till what Tuesday, it's zero time availability because there was college football,
Mhm.
NFL, the preseason, the fantasy. I'm like, whoa,
Yeah.
whoa, that's deep. So I think I understand it. The question for me is, how do you? Okay, so if I'm a man, which I am,
Which you
and
are.
I'm aware
Good thing.
that I may lack in certain skill sets as far as connecting with people.
Yeah.
And I want to say there's many men who are very much aware of this. They know that they're missing the mark. They're struggling. They want to be in a good, healthy relationship,
Yeah.
and they're struggling where to even begin. So there's a part of me that kind of I know I agree with you because I think even with men who know that's a struggle with them, they have no idea where to get started.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's counseling, sometimes it's drum circles, all kinds of things. But I do think there are a lot of people who want to have more depth. But I'll be
Hmm.
honest, I think the other struggle is okay. There's hobbies, just work. work can be pretty time consuming for a lot of folks.
Yeah.
So when am I supposed to have time to connect with you and go on a date and spend all my money I don't have?
Well, true. And so the whole idea that, what I find in my work with couples is if you're working with straight couples, oftentimes there is culture notwithstanding, right? There is an internalized gender script that people follow oftentimes, and they follow it blindly without realizing this doesn't work for us,
Mm-hmm.
right? And
Mm-hmm.
so a lot of these things about gender roles and it really need to be deconstructed so that couples and individuals can figure out which part of this works for you, including the trope that men have to be the providers. Because look, people are losing their jobs, right? Like, we're not in a good place to hold on to that trope. So unless that's really what you're looking for, or female partners who say things like, you need to be the man in this relationship. And I'm like, what are you saying? How damaging is that?
Well,
That's damaging.
there's a lot of mind reading going out there, right? Like, so when a person says something, you need to be the man, or I need a woman who's going to take care of house and home. I mean, what exactly is that? Because if you go a little deeper beyond the surface, I need to be at the house, I need to be clean, I need the house to look a certain way all the time. I need to be able to cook really tasty meals that they're going to enjoy. I mean, there's a whole lot that's rolled into these commentary, but is never said out loud.
Yeah. Oh, I think that's the part that's key. It's never said out loud. And what it does is it influences people's expectations. And then they're
Mm-hmm.
looking at their partners like, well, what's wrong with you when those expectations were never discussed in the first place? So I'll give a story. Okay. And
Okay.
I'm not big into very strict gender roles, but somehow I repeated, I kind of fell into that. First married, I took it upon myself because I love my husband so much and did his laundry. Now, if you asked me if I was going to do somebody's laundry, I'd be like, you could do your own damn laundry. Okay. And then I was mad that he wasn't appreciative. I was like, why aren't you appreciative? And he said, Kathy, I never asked you to. And I thought to myself, you're right. You never asked me to. Why am I doing this? Went out, got his own laundry basket, never did another load of his laundry ever again because he could do his own laundry, right? What made me do that? Fall into this gender. I have been doing my own laundry since I was 7, right? Why would I even do that? It was crazy. I got over it real quick. But I think that sometimes we fall into traditional gender roles and we don't question them, and they can leave people feeling resentful and limited in understanding, like, do things that play to your strengths as an individual and a couple, not just this sort of gender role about what's expected.
I learned so much from you, Dr. Helen, when we talked because I was
So
like, if
really,
someone said bet money that she is doing her man's laundry, I've been like, hell no.
I did it, and then till I did it, and then I realized where did that even come from?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah,
why?
yeah,
I
yeah.
corrected it. I corrected it.
I mean, I hear you. But you know what? It's funny we're talking about this because I remember the first feminist course I took back in grad school. It was from the sister, a black woman who I always put her on a little bit of a pedestal when we first got in there. And one of the students who happened to be a woman said, uh, the things we talk about here about being a woman and being independent and thinking certain ways, blah blah blah. How does that apply in your personal life, in your relationship with your husband? And she's like, look, my man is a man's man. And I picked him because that's the kind of man he is. And I love him because of it. And there's some things that we do that I don't necessarily recommend for other people to do. But in my house, I'm kind of very traditional. But it's the
Hmm.
point of being able to make the choice, right? The
I
choice
think
to do
that's
that.
it. Yeah.
Right?
And we're not going to do it in this episode. We need to bring in the whole trad wife conversation.
The what wife? What you call it?
The trad wife.
Oh, this traditional trad.
Yes, but we don't have to do it today, but we really do. That movement has picked up momentum, so I think we need to
Yes,
add
it
that
has.
to a future
It
podcast.
definitely has. Well,
Yeah.
hey, so let's do one more card before we move to the
Okay.
next segment.
Okay.
And here we go. And this is the one I thought might be a little challenging. It says,
Okay.
an absolute truth for me is blank. An absolute truth for me is blank. You want to go first? Or
Well,
you
this
want me
is
to go
fun.
first?
You go first.
For me, I'll be honest, and particularly when it comes to the issues of discomfort and things being difficult, I've had an absolute truth about love. And I mean, I know that sounds real hokey, but the love that we have for ourselves, the love that bestowed on me from God, the love I have for other people, that's just a consistent, I have to constantly go back to, that's just absolute for me. And I mean love in a way that's rewarding, that's growing, that manifesting the kinds of positive things in life. And so for me, that's been a pretty consistent, absolute truth.
But I think that that truth is what makes you easy to connect to.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. Thank you.
Yeah. So my absolute truth is always showing up as my authentic self.
hmm hmm Yeah, yeah,
Right.
yeah.
So being comfortable in your own skin, which, you know, we're both Black, so you have to learn how to do that against a backdrop of a society that does not always affirm you, right?
Mhm.
Is learning how to show up as your authentic self and being comfortable in your own skin. It takes practice, but it's definitely worth it.
And whatever it is, right? Because, blackness shows up in so many different ways
Yeah.
and shades and versions. And being whatever it is, be it, let it be. Yeah, I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
Well,
Right.
I think we're at the side eye segment. Let's start off. I do that. We got Candace Owens and Shannon Sharp. Which one do you want to do first?
Probably Candace Owens.
Yes, let's do her. Now,
I'm gonna let you take the floor on that.
this is my beef with Candace Owens. She's been pretty much the darling of conservatives of the MAGA movement, and black folks. I think sometimes our approach to her is, well, let's just hear what she has to say, and then we hear
Mm.
what she has to say. We're like, oh my god, this woman. But this is the part that gets me is when usually white folks are like, well, Candace Owens says. I'm like, hold on.
Oh,
There
great.
you go again, bringing up the token one black woman who's
Mhm.
very intelligent, who sounds like she knows what she's talking about, but is just disconnected from I think the experiences of a vast majority of black folks in this country.
Yeah. Well,
But
and I would gather to say, and I'm making a assumption here, but disconnected from yourself as a Black woman and your history and the experience and community too.
yes,
Specifically the Black community and the experiences of those communities. So I think that some of the things that she does and says, not only for sensationalism and popularity, but
hmm
you're distancing yourself, right, from people who look like you by some of the inflammatory things that you choose to say. And hey, you get to believe however you want to believe, right? But I think some of those things are a deliberate attempt to continue to make a name for yourself, be relevant, and to distance yourself from blackness and the Black community.
well,
Just
and I think that's totally true. I mean, the thing is, I had a friend of mine who was like, Have you heard from Candace lately? She's been holding Trump accountable because of the Epstein files and so on. And they're like, maybe she's changed. And I was like, I doubt it so
wow.
much. She got so much other nonsense going on. And so, as I thought, and this is why I wanted to talk about it.
Yeah.
She has basically been saying that the president of France, Macron,
Yeah.
his wife, who's considerably older than him, is somehow trans.
Yeah.
And basically has been making this like literally a series of shows on her podcast, making the case for why this is true. And then
Mhm.
then invited them to sue her for libel. And then they did.
Yeah. And, just so number one, it's ugliness all around. So,
Yes.
number one, the hate on trans people is, I
Yes.
just cannot, right?
Yes.
Like, leave people alone. Let people be people. You don't have to like who people are, leave them alone. Okay. Just
hmm
leave them alone. One.
hmm
Two, right? When you go back and you read the history, she keeps slamming this woman
Yes.
over and over and over again. And I'm sort of like, what is the nastiness about? Did this woman do something to you? Did she insult you, or are you just again trying to further your career on the backs of your nastiness towards somebody else? Right? What? I don't understand why you are slandering her or appearing to slander her.
Well, I think kind of what you said. I think it's all about her publicity. I think she's taking a situation where you have a considerably older woman who's been dating her husband, they have kids, they have a family. People have even questioned how they got together and that whole business. And now taking on top of it, layered the issue around transgender community and their experiences and accusing her of something that we all know is false. but
Mhm.
this allows her to get attention, and I think that's a lot of people's, I think, legitimate frustration with a lot of these
Yeah.
unfortunately MAGA folks, it seems like, who are willing to say almost anything. And it's this idea of freedom of speech, right? I can say and do anything without consequence. Or somehow
Mhm.
I'm the victim because I'm being held accountable. When in truth, this accountability has always been an issue. It's
Yeah.
always been an
Well,
issue.
why be nasty for no reason except for it gets you followers, right?
Right.
Why are you going after this woman? I don't understand it. I don't
Well, I
understand it.
understand it. I don't understand it because for me, the idea, for me to wake up every morning trying to think about how cruel, how I can spend time being cruel towards someone to make money, to gain
Yeah.
influence, to gain power. I think that's I think a lot of people's beef right now, and
Mhm.
unfortunately, I think some people like it and they gravitate to it. I was talking to someone not too long ago, and they're like,
Mhm.
I don't necessarily agree with all the politics of Trump, but I like all the drama that he brings. I'm like, what?
See, you know what? If I want drama, I'll go watch a reality TV show. I don't want drama in government.
Not in
I don't
government,
want drama.
and
But
not in ways that impact people's personal lives.
exactly. And I will say, from some of the what Candace Owens is doing, right? There is always this lack of kindness that is seeming to permeate our society right now. We do not have to all agree with one another. We don't actually have to like one another. But what happened to kindness and respect because somebody is a human being? And maybe I'm just being, foo-foo, right? Maybe I'm just being, I don't know, but we're missing kindness and somebody's right to be different than you. You don't have to like it, just leave them alone.
Right, and
You
this is
don't
the
have
thing.
it. You
But
don't have enough of your own business. You gotta, talk something about somebody else,
right.
please.
Well, and you talked about this earlier. I mean, I think part of this need to be kind of this toxic reality is this it's riding the coattails of authenticity when it's not authentic, right? Because
Correct.
you can't tell me this process that she and others are going through is an authentic process. If anything, authentic process would ask yourself, maybe this isn't real. But I'm creating something that actually benefits me, regardless of the impact that it's having on other people. So,
Pretty sure she doesn't care.
yep, straight up, don't care,
Pretty sure.
don't care, don't
Pretty
care,
sure she
don't
doesn't
care.
care. Yeah.
Only thing I want to say about Shannon Sharp, and the reason I'm giving him side eye, is because if you follow him, he had a huge contract coming his way, and then he got accused of sexual assault and some violence, and then apparently
Mhm.
they paid her off, and she said, "Well, no, actually, it was all a consensual, blah blah blah." And so there was a question about whether he was still going to maintain this contract with ESPN. It was a big contract. I mean, his show was hella popular. Uh, and they decided to not continue their relationship with him. And so my side
Mhm.
eye is like, bruh, you've done a really good job of curating this image of a cool dude, man's man kind of thing like that. But the video, if you heard the audio that came out about a
I did
conversation,
not.
you don't
Is
want
this
to.
where his phone was on Instagram Live and he
No,
was,
no.
no, okay, not
That's
that.
a
Okay.
whole other situation. Yeah, this one is when she recorded him and some of the things that they were saying involved choking and some other kinds of things and talking kind of crazy. But what they're saying now is that that's just how they talk with one another. And so there's a part of me is
That's
like,
just
hey,
how they get
that's your
down.
business. That's your business. You do your thing. But I'm side eyeing him because I'm like, bruh. You got to do a better job. If I mean, for someone who's in your position with this level
Hmm.
of fame and wealth, there's just some things you got to be a bit careful with. If that's the
Hmm.
lifestyle you live and everyone's cool and everyone's on the same page, cool. But you
Right.
got to do a better job of protect yourself. However, I believe what's probably going. I mean, ESPN is probably the biggest least in the U.S. as far as sports communications.
Hmm. Hmm.
Now they're going to end the relationship, but he's going to find someone else to work with. It's not
Yeah.
like the end of his career or anything like that. So hopefully he'll learn from this experience, his level of discomfort.
Yeah. Well, and hopefully it's not true, right? Sexual assault is nothing to joke about. So
Oh no,
hopefully it's not true.
no. My hope is it is not true. I mean, again, those situations are complicated and nuanced, and my hope is that they just have very kind of particular kind of relationship. If it was
Hmm.
sexual assault, that would be terrible.
Yeah.
And I hope that's not the case. So I agree with you on that one.
Yeah.
So anything else on that one before we wrap things up? I have our last little um
I got one more
part.
thing.
Oh, sure.
So, as part of our podcast, we're each going to introduce something that we love, right? And
Oh,
this week it's my turn.
yes.
I love the Peloton app. Peloton should give me a kickback with how many clients of my own therapy clients I have recommended who pick colleagues, right? I love the Peloton app. It's a great way to get in shape, stay in shape. It's like having a gym on your phone. All the instructors are, very good looking and very, very sort of, take a science and social approach to working out. I love it. So if you're looking to get in shape, they've got all kinds of workouts. So my love for today, the thing I'm recommending is the Peloton app. It's like having a gym on your phone.
I have a feeling I would use Peloton for the same reasons why I started taking salsa and bachata classes. There's some real fine women in there, so I figured I'd sign up for it, regardless of whether I really want to dance. But I figure, I'm gonna holler for at least 25, 45 minutes. So, is there a way of meeting people on Peloton?
I don't think so. No, that's not the
They
point.
should add
Nope,
that.
that's
They
not
should
the
add
point.
that. They should add that.
What's your card?
Oh, I'm sorry. My card, here it is. It says, choose a player. That's just you and me. And
Okay.
share, I felt connected to you the most when blank. I felt the most connected to you uh, the most when blank.
Okay. I can answer this one. So if we're talking about my connection to you, it's when we met at ABC, right? You
Mhm.
just lost your mom. I just lost my dad. We connected around kind of the grief of what it's like to lose a parent and then figured out that we had kind of all these things in common and we are of like mind on many things.
Yeah, thank. Well, one way that I felt connected to you actually today was when you were kind of giving me a compliment for why you think people are drawn to me, and I'm not really good with compliments. FYI, I go back to being like 5 years old again, and like, but I felt a connection because I felt seen in that moment. So I appreciate you sharing that, and it felt very nice to hear that. So thank you.
Well, it is ironic that you felt seen since I still can't see you, but that's okay.
Yeah, we're having different forms of communication here. Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Well, hey, thank you so much, Dr. Helm. It's such a pleasure to be with you today. This
You
is
too, Dr. Prince.
yes, Riffing Wild. I can't even say the word Riffing Wild Black, episode 3. Good to see
All
you,
right,
and I'll
everybody.
see you
See you
next
later.
time.
See you next week.
All right, then. Take care.
Okay. Bye-bye.